So I went down and got the Mustang. I don't know what time it was that time. I guess it was 10 minutes till 6. My recollection may be wrong. I thought it was 3-4 blocks north and 3-4 blocks west, and stopped at the service station and asked them to fix a tire, if they could fix a tire. And this guy was, he said, no, we're too busy this time of day. So then I drove around. I was going to circle right back and park the car same place that I picked it up. When I got back up there, I seen, I think there was a squad car blocked off the street. Now, I don't know if he's right there at the intersection or he's about halfway down, but the street was blocked off, and I seen 2-3 people running around down there. So I said, well, I better not go down there. The police running around here. So I turned left, drove down through a predominantly black section. So after a while, I got on a main street. I was going to call this telephone number in New Orleans and find out if they could contact Raw and see if anything happened there, because I thought maybe being with guns around there, some type of raid or something. Well, anyway, when I was driving out there, they said something about, I had radio and said something about Martin Luther King had been shot. I didn't think too much about that. And then about 10 minutes later, when I was on the outskirts of Memphis, or maybe I was actually in Mississippi, they said that they were looking for a white man in a white Mustang in connection with the shooting. So I decided then that I better, move on out of there. I drove on and cut off and went to Atlanta. And from Atlanta, I, went on to Canada, caught a bus.
For 20 years now, Ray has claimed that he was framed for the assassination of Dr. King by Raoul, who, he believes, was a professional gunman. If the assassin had fired the shot from the bathroom window, he would then have had to get out of the bath, put the rifle in its box, run to his room to pick up the bundle, then run 85 feet across the hallway, go down the stairs, drop the bundle in the shop entrance before walking to his car and driving away. All rather implausible. It would have required split-second timing before the first policeman arrived at the scene.
When you find a murder committed, and right outside the place you find a radio that he had in jail with his serial number on it, you find a beer can with his fingerprint on it, you find a gun with his fingerprint on it that was dropped right outside the building, conveniently for everybody to find it. But I think one of the most important things, two things. One, there was a tree in the way. And Earl Caldwell, he was a writer for the New York Times at the time. Right. The New York Times that day is the only paper, and I'm not a fan of the New York Times, I'm a fan of Earl Caldwell, that said that tree had been uprooted that night. Now, had that tree been there, it would have been possible for that shot to have come from that angle. And nobody seems to want to deal with this.
We were in the fire station when we heard the shot.
One of the first policemen to arrive at the balcony was Sheriff's Deputy Vernon Dollarhite.
Officer Maley and I proceeded north on Mulberry to Hewling Street. We turned west on Hewling and ran up towards Main, and there's an alley behind the buildings where the shot was fired from. I directed Officer Maley to take up a position there. He was armed with a shotgun and a pistol and guard the alley. I proceeded on up to Main Street. I turned to go south on Main Street, checking those buildings. I proceeded on south, checking all the doors of all the establishments. There's one place called Jim's Bar and Grill. The door was open. I entered the building, and I told them there's been some trouble. Everybody stay inside. And I backed out of the building. At that time, I observed a rifle, a blue suitcase, and a green blanket laying on the sidewalk.
Did you see the package with the rifle when you went into Jim's Grill?
I did not. After I came outside and turned to my right, facing south, I immediately saw it. I feel sure that I would have observed it as I came down the sidewalk, because it was very noticeable, and I would have seen it.
How long were you in Jim's Grill?
Not more than 10 to 12, 15 seconds at the most.
3 different policemen have claimed to be the first to find the weapon. Astonishingly, even after 20 years, this question remains unresolved. But the fact is that Dollarhite was certainly in Main Street within less than 2 minutes of the shooting.
I think it's very significant that a bundle of the alleged murder weapon appeared within 2 minutes on the street after the assassination. I think it's also significant that he didn't see it the first time that he came out, and it is very possible that someone was lying in wait in the entranceway to the rooming house, and then only came out and dropped it quickly after he went into Jim's Grill.
Do you think that person was the assassin, or was it somebody else?
I don't believe that person was the assassin. I believe that the person who dropped the bundle in all likelihood had a very specific role to play, and it was placing the bundle there. I don't believe the assassin was in the rooming house at all, and that this is just a part of disinformation.
2 months later, after leaving a trail of false identities, small-time crook James Earl Ray was arrested at Heathrow Airport in London. He was brought back to the States and sentenced to 99 years after pleading guilty to King's murder. With a trial that lasted only 2.5 hours, suspicions were raised. Was the verdict rushed through to cover up a conspiracy?
I don't give a continental damn whether there was a conspiracy.
Well, Mr. Foreman, did you ever ask your client whether he was a part of a conspiracy, whether he'd been hired?
No, I never asked him that, but I asked him enough other questions to convince me that he was not.
Did you ever feel that you could ever do more than save his life?
Never at any time, and so told him from the day I came in.
When Foreman came in the case, he was off for a trial, at least he pretended to be, and everything went okay up until sometime in February of 1969. We was going to trial up until then, and one time he came in with a paper, wanted me to sign it, saying that, we'd enter a guilty plea. He gave me a list of reasons why we should enter a plea. He also said the newspapers done convicted me by pretrial publicity, and so I told him I didn't think that was the grounds for entering a guilty plea, because I thought we could overcome some of this adverse publicity during the trial. His next gamut was that if I didn't enter a guilty plea, they might put my brother Jerry Ray in prison as a co-conspirator. And he also indicated that if I forced him at trial, he wouldn't put forth his best efforts.
Are you actually stating that you never recommended to Mr. Ray that he plead guilty in the case?
I have so stated. I state again. I never have recommended to any client. I did tell him the facts as I saw them. I told him I thought he would be convicted. I told him I thought he would be executed. And I had to tell him that because that was the truth.
Foreman's assertion that he didn't coerce Ray into a guilty plea is belied by the letter he wrote to him on the eve of the trial. Foreman's fee was coming from a book contract. Ray asked for $500 so that his brother could hire a new lawyer. Foreman agreed, quote, contingent on the plea of guilty going through without any unseemly conduct on your part in court.
So Mr. Foreman came to see me, and we discussed it, and I told him that I would, as in every case, where appropriate, accept a guilty plea on the basis of a 99-year sentence. I talked to the governor of Tennessee, the United States Attorney General, the Department of Justice. I did this as a matter of courtesy. They did not ever interfere with the way I conducted the prosecution of the case.
It's only recently become apparent that there was a conflict of interest in the court's appointment of Hugh Stanton Sr. to assist Ray's lawyer, Percy Foreman, in Ray's defense. Stanton had also acted as lawyer for the state's chief witness against Ray, Charles Stevens.
Did you ever consider that Hugh Stanton was in a conflict of interest because he had also represented Charlie Stevens? Was that ever considered?
No, as a matter of fact, I believe you're right that Mr. Stanton did. Well, I believe Mr. Stevens finally got somebody else. I don't know, but no, we didn't consider it any. You're telling me something that if that's a fact, I had forgotten it. But whatever it was, nothing came up to bother us about it.
The only person the state named who identified Ray as the man who left the rooming house after the shot was Charles Quitman Stevens.
Good customer. Bought a lot of beer in my place. Got drunk every day you could afford it.
And on the day of the shooting of Martin Luther King, he came downstairs in the afternoon.
Come down. I just got to work at 4 o'clock. Come down about 4:10 after I'd arrived at work. He was too drunk for me to sell him beer, then arrest him, so I sold him 2 quarts of beer to go.
We tracked down cab driver James McGraw, who got a call to pick up Stevens from the rooming house that day.
When I go up there and he was so drunk he couldn't even get out of bed. And I turned around and Lil wouldn't hold him. I went back down and told the dispatcher. and I just made a U-turn and left. And before I got down to the train station, it come over the radio that Martin Luther King had got shot.